when you're not a super team, it's easier to be on the same page. When you are a super team, you will have better solutions in the moment due to that experience, and on the long run, you should be in a position where you do end up being on the same page. And when that happens and everything clicks, then that's where you can hit your full potential.
This is Zento from Esports Heaven, and I have here with me Guilhoto from Team Liquid, coach, and a disappointing loss against Cloud9. There was an interesting, I guess, pick in the draft of Jax. Do you want to kind of explain the theory behind that?
So we are playing Ryze versus a mage. Usually the reason why Ryze is so strong red side is just because you can counterpick top and play for top, which I felt like we kind of did. When we ended up diving the Tryndamere, making sure that he was behind. It's also a good matchup into Tryndamere, so goal was obviously to snowball it. That was stopped by what happened at first Herald, but there's no much secret to it. It's also nothing that was never seen before. Other regions have been playing Ryze with Jax as well into Tryndamere, so they just felt good that game.
Talk to me about that Herald fight, because you guys certainly had the 5v4, and there seems to be a really heavy importance on Herald. A lot of teams are actually willing to take that fight almost no matter what. But it was weird because also too, I noticed that CoreJJ didn't take exhaust against a Tryndamere. But I don't know whether that is the appropriate thing or not. Can you kind of walk me through that Herald fight and maybe the choices that you guys were thinking about, or maybe the players were talking about after the game?
It's just Zeri has first move, so we are going to be on a 5v4. But we were never really on a 5v4 because the fight started too early. Between us going too early or Bwipo not blocking Tryndamere from coming in, or us not putting the Herald, there are a lot of situations that we can play that. But ideally, just the only thing we want to do at Herald is make sure that the fight starts when Zeri is on a position to join the fight. And if we do that, then we wipe them and the game ends. But we started the fight way too early, and on the 4v4 we don't win. So then we lose the game. The game is kind of decided. Or we should lose the game. Like, they gave us a lot of openings to come back. But the game should be decided in that Herald, and I don't want us to not take that fight. I think that fight should be really good. We just have to play it better and wait for the 5v4.
So I noticed in the draft what was kind of difficult maybe to work around as the mid game started to play out, and you guys started to come back oftentimes by trying to avoid the dragon objective and just team fighting and kind of stabilizing the game. There was always the threat of Bwipo in the side lane, but there's also Tahm Kench and Fog of War. Talk to me about how Tahm Kench dictates maybe how a top laner plays.
I don't think it was ever about Tahm Kench. It was usually about Trundle. I think Blubber was playing well on covering whatever side we wanted to play on, and I think that we were also not doing a good job on whatever side they are covering to go to the other side and take advantage that we have a TP advantage because Tryndamere is playing Ghost. Even if Tahm can move on Fog, when both supports are not showing mid, Zeri was getting mid push, and Zeri, when she can jump also through walls, should be able to move first. But we were, we should have done a better job on exploring a certain timings, and our comp needs to be more creative than theirs. But we did it on a couple of timers. We just needed to do more, and obviously when Bwipo then got caught and kind of died those two times in a row, the game ends. But until then, even after the Herald fight and with our comeback, we were still on a fine spot to drag the game out. But then those two crucial mistakes just sealed the deal.
Talk to me about the, I guess, team formation, or maybe the players and their particular playstyle, because we've heard from other interviews. I think Bjergsen had an interview before saying it's kind of good that all these different players have different playstyles, and Bwipo is thought of as like this wild card, and he does these wild plays. Talk to me about Bwipo's play style, maybe how it might actually be necessary for you guys in terms of your player composition.
It's kind of just an X factor in a way. Like he'll make plays that that automatically win the game as he did in the past, and he'll make plays that today kind of like seal the deal. But I think that that's who it is, and I'm really glad to have him on the team and to have him on a team with that quality. Because we'll face games that are hard to break, and in those games we can always trust that Bwipo will, or that Bwipo has the possibility to just completely flip the game into our side. That's his strength. That's where he's best off. That and obviously his large champion pool that allows us to create advantages in draft. But obviously sometimes like the other side of the coin will also come. Personally, as a coach, I like more to have the upsides and the downsides than just have complete neutrality. I think every good team needs it, and I think it's a good balance for our team to have him.
So talk to me about Core JJ, and he's done this multiple times now, to where level 1 he'll just run straight down mid lane and try and get you guys an advantage. Is this something intentional? Is this something like on the fly? How does it all work?
Just welcome to LCS. That's the name of the play. Sometimes we'll do it, sometimes we won't. I think it's important now that we are going into playoffs that we start testing some level 1 strategies and making sure that we are not easy to read on level 1 in what we can do. The game starts once everyone spawns on the Rift, and we want to be an active team, and that starts on level 1.
So I have noticed there is more of a playstyle from Team Liquid currently right now, to where there's a lot of focus mid lane. Core is roaming mid heavily a lot, and you have Santorin kind of playing around this mid focus. Is this something that is conscious by Bjergsen himself? Is he calling for these plays to happen? Like how does the flow work?
No, I don't think we have a special focus on mid. When there are Ryze matchups, either us playing into Ryze or with Ryze, and the same applies to Ahri. Basically, every non-mage versus mage matchup of AFK farm, attention mid is important. Freezes are easily to obtain and can have a big impact. Champions that win through or blocking Ryze roams, for example, in the Ryze matchup is something that is important. Champions that require to either win 2v2 or that their playstyle is to move into sides require a different attention. But that's not something that we specially do or focus on. It's just, if you look at any team in the world, this is what they do because that's the way that you have to play in this type of matchups.
So talk to me about this super team. Managing a super team, managing players with big brands, with a ton of experience that can basically know what to do inside the game at all stages and phases. How is that different from managing not a super team?
I think it comes much more about being on the same page. I think that when it's not a super team, it's much easier to be on the same page. At least last year it was, because it's easier to make everyone buy into the same idea, while here everyone has different ideas. It's a good and a bad thing. It takes longer to reach the same page, but everyone also knows more and can find better angles to solve difficult situations in the moment. It's more stressful, and obviously, but at the same time, it's just like a trade-off to you have bigger chances to win, right? I think, different than also other super teams. I think that all players in our team are very, very hardworking and committed to. Just because we have a super team, and by the way, C9 also has a super team. EG supposedly should be having a super team too, right? But I think that in our case, at least, I think everyone understands that the fact that we have 5 good players or 5 good names, that doesn't win us anything. So everyone is really hardworking. And then obviously it comes with all the other adversities that took to build a super team, the Core JJ green card, the fact that in the last 2 weeks we couldn't have 4 days of practice because there was always something happening in the middle. It's a bumpy road, being a super team or not. It's a bumpy road, and the main difference is just when you're not a super team, it's easier to be on the same page. When you are a super team, you will have better solutions in the moment due to that experience, and on the long run, you should be in a position where you do end up being on the same page. And when that happens and everything clicks, then that's where you can hit your full potential.
See, one thing and one kind of narrative that people were running with in the very beginning of the season was that maybe this team would be too agreeable. You have Bwipo that is willing to sacrifice. You have Santorn, it's a sacrificial player. You have Bjergsen that's sacrificial. You have Core JJ who's looking to roam and help out his teammates. How is it now coming into the sixth week? Is that kind of a true thing?
No.
Or?
No, no. We are very greedy. We are very greedy in having resources. We were more before. I think that's something that we are definitely working on. But when I say being on the same page, it's more related to agreeing on the way to play the game, not being agreeable of like everyone is. I guess in the sense that people were saying that people are agreeable, that is true. Like if I'm asking someone to be on the back foot, they are all down to do it. But it's not a preference, and the way to see the game is also different, and that's what I mean by that being on the same page. But I don't know. We are definitely not a passive team and all eggs into Hans Sama basket, which was the main thing. We put a lot of eggs in everyone's basket, and I think everyone had player of the games, and we played to all sides. So we have to, if we want to have success internationally, we have to.
So talk to me about working with essentially 4 European players. I mean, it's got to be kind of different, maybe coming from American culture and different teams, and then now working with mostly European players. How have you noticed a difference in mentality?
I mean, I only worked with 2 American players, and they were rookies. So I noticed the mentality between rookie and veteran, but not necessarily the mentality between American player and European player. That I didn't notice that because I didn't work with any American veteran player.
So finally, I want to get your thoughts on North America and the dreaded side lane. I don't know if you saw the tweet from Shakira's Golden Guardians basically not touching a side wave for, I think it was 12 minutes. What are your thoughts on that as far as North America?
They played bad. I've seen that happening in EU and Korean LPL as well. Like it was just, I think that this was a problem that NA had, that this was kind of like the norm. But the fact that this is the first tweet that we see related to that, it's just an outlier. I don't think a lot of fuss should be done around it. I don't even think 100 Thieves was in the wrong. Like they can't go side. It's just GGS has to go side, right? And then they will respond. But I don't think it's a NARAM thing. It was just the Golden Guardians played bad. Once they got the lead, they couldn't close the game. Same thing when they had Nash. Instead of playing on 3 lanes to break a tier 3, they were having Nash 10k gold lead, and they couldn't even crack an inhibitor. Obviously, they can do much better than what they did. They are not a bad team, and 100 Thieves is not a good team either. So I think it's just like a one game type of things. Probably there were more games in NA that happens, but the games where people do play side lanes and the games that people don't play side lanes is not the same ratio as it was a couple of years ago.
That's good to hear. That's good. We're improving slowly but surely. Okay. Well, do you have any final thoughts about this weekend, or rather this match today?
See you in the finals. Like it's going to be us and C9. There's no other good team in the league.
All right, that's a promise. You heard it here, guys. This has been Azento from Esports Heaven and Guilhoto from Team Liquid. Thank you very much.
Thank you.